Today, we'll start with working with functions. We have already discussed about the functions in the previous two classes. A program can be divided into small parts, which are called as functions, and each function performs a particular task. So, dividing a program into functions has many advantages. It reduces the complexity of the program and it makes the handling of the program easier too, and thereby the program size is also reduced. We can have well defined components for making the program more readable and understandable, and it also provides reusability of code, because once we define a function we can call n number of times, and a function is a well tested code and it's already existing, so and we are making call to it many a time, so it's trouble free, it's bug free, and we can use the code which is already existing. That's called reusability of code. A function has a name. You all have seen that in the previous classes. It also has arguments if required, and it performs a particular task which is called functionality. And there are functions which may or may not return a result. So that's all about we have done for the functions. But the question arises how to define your own function. We have been using certain functions which have been already there in the Python namespace, like len, type. We have that input which we have been using all the time. So these are already defined and we are using it. But in case a programmer needs to use his own function, first he needs to define a function and then make calls to that function. So let's see here, there is a def keyword which tells the Python that you are defining a function. So it's a keyword to start the definition, followed by the function name, and circular brackets may be empty or it may contain certain values. Here we can see that there's only one value which is required by the function cube, followed by a comment about what the function is doing, which is a triple quoted string, and it is ignored by the Python interpreter. And then we have uh, two statements which are indented. The very important thing is when you write def, name of the function, followed by circular brackets and parameters, if any, given in that bracket, and there is a colon, which is very, very important. The function and header, this is called function header, which ends with a colon. And the body of the function contains the statements, Python statements, which performs a particular task. Here we can see there are two statements which are indented. Even there is a comment which is ignored by the Python interpreter. So it's calculating the cube of a variable x. There is no value of this x. This is just a definition, a template. Unless and until we call a function, the function body does not get executed. And I'm sure from this example, it is very clear what is a function header, what is a function body, and colon is very, very important in the function header. And you have already seen in the previous class that the colon marks that the next statement should be indented, as we have seen in looping statements. Now, once we define a function, we can always call it n number of times. And we can see a return statement as the last line. So there are certain functions which may or may not return a value. So let's see this, how to call this particular function which is defined here, cube4. That means we need the function name, just the function name, and if it requires any value or it is defined with a single value, we need to provide that value. So cube4 here is a function call statement to this particular statement. So 4 is, this value is passed and the receiving variable is here x, it gets the value x and then it returns the value which is 64 here, and this value is replaced here in this queue. But the most important thing is the function call statement is replaced by the returning value. And when you have the returning value here, we are not doing anything with the returning value. We need to either write in an assignment statement or we can use it in a print statement to print the returning value. So a function call can have the arguments, which may be a literal, which may be a variable, or it can be an expression, or it can be used in another statement, and even it can be used in an assignment statement. As I told you, sum is a function called sum a comma b. Let's say a and b have some values. So this is a function call statement, and this gives the value, returning value of this function is replaced here, and result becomes the returning value. And we can do any further processing on the variable result, or we can directly print it.